Hello, everyone, and welcome to WWJPS. I am your host, Vanessa Pinto. Did you know that the CIA can hack into your car and take control of it?
Does the CIA listen through our phones and laptop cameras? Yes. I hate to say it. There was a dramatic leak in 2017 that the CIA came to call the Vault 7 disclosures. Gigabytes worth of documents leaked by a CIA technology engineer. What he told us was that the CIA can intercept anything from anyone, number one. Number two, they can remotely take control of your car through the car's embedded computer. To do what? To make you drive off a bridge, into a tree, to make you kill yourself, and make it look like an accident.
Joshua LeBlanc, a 29-year-old NASA nuclear propulsion engineer, vanished from his home at 4 a.m. He leaves behind his phone, his wallet, and his dog. At 2:45 p.m., his Tesla is found charred beyond recognition. It didn't just crash. It incinerated. The official story, a tragic accident. But Tesla's Sentry mode shows that car sat at Huntsville Airport for 4 hours that morning. LeBlanc had no flight booked. He had no reason to be there.
Year-old Joshua LeBlanc was not just any NASA engineer. He worked on nuclear propulsion systems, one of the most sensitive areas in aerospace. His body burned beyond recognition, and police confirmed his identity 3 days later after the body was transported to the Alabama Department of Forensic Science. And at the time,
And it's curious. Clearly, we're going to be talking about the 11 scientists today, and actually now we're at 13. They are either missing or they are dead by either suicide or some bizarre story. And they do keep getting more and more weird. Some just literally walk out into the forest and never come back. This particular gentleman drove his car, it was a Tesla, who could be hacked into. All of these scientists had very particular clearance. They weren't just ordinary scientists.
family said they feared he had been abducted and that he had left his phone and wallet in his home at the time of the disappearance. Why are all these scientists leaving their phones behind when they leave? So since he didn't have his phone, police tracked LeBlanc down using data from his Tesla Sentry mode and found that his vehicle sat at the airport in Huntsville for hours on the morning of his passing. His NASA SNP technology, quote, would enable faster and more robust transportation for crew and cargo missions to Mars and science missions to the outer solar system, according to the government's agency website. And this happened.
And the reason we started with that CIA clip is because all of that came out in a leak. A disgruntled CIA agent dropped all of this information, which let us know that they could spy on us with everything, that they could hack into our cars, that there was a great deal that the CIA was doing that, once again, we didn't know about, because the CIA is really one of those 1% that runs the world. So now let's take a look at the other ones who are missing. This is Amy Eskeridge. And what you'll notice is that all of these scientists at one point do say that they are afraid for their lives due to different things. Some have just noticed that they're being watched. With all of the deaths and disappearances, some of them just started making statements because they were concerned about their safety. Meet Amy Eskeridge.
An independent group that aimed to publicly explore and discuss unconventional physics ideas like gravity manipulation. She died at the age of 34 inches, Huntsville, Alabama. She came from a NASA-connected family. Her father was an engineer, and her area of expertise was focused in advanced propulsion theories and experimental science. Before her death, Eskeridge made disturbing statements suggesting she felt threatened. She reportedly said her life was in danger, claimed harassment and intimidation, including allegations involving energy weapons. Eskeridge's case is often grouped into a broader cases where multiple scientists have died or disappeared mysteriously. However, it's a question that remains unanswered. Anti-gravity research itself has a long history of controversy and speculation. For example, Ning Li was another scientist known for similar theories. Her work also sparked decades of speculation. She was struck by a car in Huntsville which left her with a permanent brain damage. She later died. This
all from Huntsville, Alabama, huh? Something interesting going out there. But essentially, all of these people are very knowledgeable anti-gravity, antimatter, things that I couldn't even begin to understand, but essentially a large part of it to do with UFOs and things that perhaps the government doesn't want us to know about, like the Men in Black. And remember that everything that was shown in movies, all of the shit that we think is make-believe, as we've grown to learn, is just their way of letting us know. So when we watch things like the Men in Black or Alien or whatever, they are just slowly introducing what's really happening. Because in reality, we have to think, why on earth would they kill these people? What could they know? What could they possibly know that would be so alarming to the public that they would kill 13 top-level scientists, people with degrees, respect, lives?
So JPL, Frank Mywald, dead. Top scientist detecting signs of alien life. Carl Grillmer, dead. Scientist working on infrared telescopes. His work reportedly found a planet with water. Michael David Hicks, dead. NASA research scientist. Monica Jacinto Reza, missing. Director of Materials Processing Group, received funding. At the Kansas City National Security Campus, Stephen Garcia, missing, government contractor.
If we want to say that car accident was weird, let's talk about Amy Eskered's supposed suicide. She was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but Amy left a digital trail. She texted a friend weeks before, "If you see any report that I killed myself, I most definitely did not. If you see any report that I overdosed, I most definitely did not. If anything happens, it's suspicious. Treat it as such." But now let's talk about David Eskered.
Mysteriously disappearing or dying has now reached 12. David Wilcock has just passed away. Prominent UFO researcher and author, he is number 12. And it is apparently another self-harming situation. But just 2 days before his passing, he posted this video.
I'm excited to be here. Every day that I have on Earth is a gift and a blessing, and I'm very grateful for that. Because, frankly, people are disappearing. Scientists are going missing. Now they're saying they're going to investigate this. The president himself is saying they're going to look into this and see if anything's going on. It's a little bit scary. I got to say, it's a little bit scary. But you guys knew that I might still show up, even though it was last minute and I've had a really rough week. That's kind of like every week. But somehow we keep on making it through all of this.
Here's the investigative report produced by the Sheriff's Department in Boulder County, California. It says a 911 call was received approximately around 10 a.m. on April 20th regarding an unknown problem near the address. Now, right there, I have to pause and ask, who made the call and what was the unknown problem? The emergency communications specialist who took the call suspected the caller was experiencing a mental health crisis. This is what they're saying. Deputies arrived at approximately 11 and made contact with a male outside a residence who was holding a weapon, and within minutes, he used the weapon on himself, and he was pronounced deceased at the scene. Deputies searched the residence and surrounding properties and did not locate any other individuals. There is no known public threat.
All the scientists are feeling like an Agatha Christie movie where they all just keep dying and they don't know which one they're going to be. It's prompting them to make, videos like Dr. Gregory Rogers.
All seem very suspicious. They all have links to aerospace or a defense program. It's getting weird, guys. They're either missing or it's being said that they're taking their own lives. The timeline is wild, and their connections to military, government, NASA. Another person from aerospace concerned for his life and putting it on record.
This is Dr. Greg Rogers coming back once more. This time I want to address the 11 military personnel and scientists that have gone missing or dead over the recent time. A particular concern to me is the fact that General McCaslin, who disappeared beside of Albuquerque, disappeared just a half mile from where my good friend Linda Moulton Howe lives. I know that she's very disturbed about it.
That man sounds terrified. You can just tell by the way he's talking. It's like when you have to call 911 or there's a situation where you're scared.
Reports are saying that he had mental issues and mental fog, but his family and friends say that he was perfectly fine.
The sudden, rapid and recurring disappearances and deaths are very unusual, especially considering the quality of the personnel who went missing and disappeared or were found dead.
Are you guys paying attention to his body language and the way he is very carefully choosing his words?
I've dealt with high-level personnel my entire career, and these are not people who would routinely do things of this sort, and yet they would be involved with operations and research projects that would put them in knowledge of very important things.
The way that he just said that they have knowledge of very important things, and in the sigh following his statement, it's almost really hard to watch.
Of concern to me is the fact that since I have come out with the revelation that I saw a reverse engineered UFO, I have been harassed, and it is of concern to me that I do not become the 12th person on that list.
Well, he won't become the 12th or the 13th. He might become the 14th. Let's not wish that upon that gentleman. But the fact that he is going up, the fact that people, scientists, like I said, well-respected people that are not on drugs, people that have regular lives are suddenly afraid. And all of them at some point mention harassment.
So I want to go on record as saying that I have this concern. I am not going to walk off into the woods. I'm not going to help or do anything of that sort. So if you hear reports that something has happened to me, I want you to remember this video.
In that video, he is speaking of General William Neal McKay.
Now, Amy Eskridge is an interesting one, and she actually has a full, I think it's like 3 hours, but she does a full interview. Now, granted, she's clearly drunk, and there's clearly some issues there, but if what she's saying is true, and it's looking like it is, I think a lot of people would be drinking at that point. But she actually did open her own business to discuss this publicly, and this was a video that was found of one of her lectures.
Amy Eskridge, one of the scientists who passed away, but I think it's very important we take a look at this video.
What about the innovator who's afraid of disappearing?
That's a whole other problem. I think doing it in the public is better in that case. That's a different.
It doesn't mean it won't disappear. Even if you do it in the public, it still don't mean that the inventor won't disappear for lots of reasons.
Did you see what that guy just said? The camera panned to him. Was that a threat? He just said, even if you do it in the public, still don't mean that the inventor won't disappear. Does anybody know who this guy is? What happened to Amy Eskridge? She was working on anti-gravity research.
It's been independently discovered 4 other times. He said it has been suppressed every single time.
What do we think she meant? It is not just David Wilcock that has just passed away, but other experts and colleagues in his field have also passed away. And they were all associated or featured in the show Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. And now it's caused plasma physicist John Brandenburger. He posted this AI image and this message that says, "Dear friends, I have been told I am in danger as an anti-gravity and Mars investigator. But I tell you now that all humanity is now in danger. But so are the cover-up helpers. I urge a blanket amnesty for all in the cover-up."
The cover-up helpers. I want you to remember that. I want you to really remember that. Also, if you've gotten this far, please drop a black heart. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I've noticed that a lot of you are not subscribed, but you do watch quite a bit, so please, please, please subscribe. It's just getting weirder. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Vanessa, why are you again being paranoid about the CIA? Well, let's look at this. If we were to think that the CIA were doing this, why this purge, right? The UFO leak cleanup. As disclosure gets closer, the people who actually built the secret tech are the biggest liabilities. If they talk to the Davids, the whistleblowers, and confirm secret UFO bases, the game is over. Now, let's talk about the anti-gravity. Anti-gravity and nuclear propulsion don't just take us to Mars, they provide free energy. Free energy. What are we fighting about? What are we constantly in need of? Energy. The CIA's job is to protect the status quo, always. If you solve the energy crisis, you become a threat to the global economy. Maybe the agency just doesn't trust the old guard anymore. As these scientists get older, they get a conscience, and a scientist with a conscience and a security clearance is a software update away from a Tesla fire.
who left his New Mexico home with nothing but a gun, never to be seen again. And Stephen Garcia, a government contractor who also disappeared in New Mexico, also with a gun and no personal belongings. But other lesser-known cases are also catching our attention. 53-year-old Melissa Cassius worked at a research lab in Los Alamos, New Mexico. She was last seen in June of 2025, 3 miles from her home, walking along a highway. She left behind her purse, her wallet, and her phone, with the phone's history.
Are you starting to notice that when they're all missing, none of them have a phone, none of them have a wallet, none of them have keys, which, let's face it, those are our keys to the world. We don't leave our home without those items.
A month before that, 78-year-old Anthony Chavez went missing, a former employee of the same lab where Melissa worked. There's also the case of Monica Reza, who disappeared in June of 2025 while hiking in Los Angeles with a friend. Police say Reza was about 30 feet behind the person she was with, smiling and waving, but when the person turned back, she was gone.
And here's the thing, right? So it was one that they are all, missing, right? Then they're all committing suicide. Now there's the Tesla burning, and now it's just odd. And now we got one more, folks.
Scientists have died, and this time it was in a plane crash. This is actually getting so insane. I think this is now number 15 of missing/dead scientists around the world. So not many people are talking about this one. I'll give you some of the details. It was a family of 4, and it was just them flying in the plane.
A family of 4 in their own fucking plane, which means someone could have gone in, done something mechanically, because you have to admit, it's odd. I mean, this shit is odd.
And all of them died. So the father, he was a decorated veteran pilot, also an aerospace engineer and a defense researcher. He worked for NASA, contributing to 14 space missions. He later then worked in private defense research and aerospace consulting. And one of the sons, Andrew, he was 30 years old, and he was an up-and-coming research engineer and scientist at the University of Alabama. Now, speaking of Alabama, they were flying to Huntsville when the plane crashed. Now, Huntsville,
Amy Eskridge, the other scientist, his name I'm not remembering, but was done right after her. Huntsville. I believe in one part of her interview, she says, it's the craziest place you've never heard of. There's a base there.
is also where Amy Eskridge was from, the scientist that I've been covering who died in 2022. She was working on anti-gravity, and she was saying that she was literally being targeted by a directed energy weapon for her work. Also, the NASA nuclear scientist who died in a fiery crash in his Tesla last year was also in Huntsville. It's getting way too suspicious to be coincidental, and I know Trump said that he's looking into it, but I don't know what the heck these scientists know, but this is some scary stuff. Two more.
Yeah, Trump's looking into making sure all of them are dead. That entire White House, if they're not murdering, they're taking in Bitcoin, they're snorting cocaine, or just drunk on the job. There is more corruption in that White House than I think in most fucking casinos in Vegas. These last few clips, kind of correlate everything, but this was an interview that was actually done in 1999, and essentially what we're finding out from the CIA and all the people that can talk now for whatever reason that they can talk, this has been going on for years. God only knows what they can do. If there are portals, I mean, we all heard that Sam Altman is trying to build portals to bring demons out of. They're talking about time travel, talking about the fact that there are actually bases on Mars, that we've gone to Mars, that there's all of these things that we can do, but they're keeping it from us on purpose. But this one was really interesting. This is from Jim Goodall, who did actually work at Area 51.
Can you really tell me what's happening out there? And he said, well, there's a lot of things that are going on there that I won't be able to tell you until the year 2025. But we have things in the Nevada desert that would make George Lucas envious.
Notice the year. And all this is happening. As I said in a prior video, 2026 has long been discussed for many, many, many years. All of this was planned. Really, the new people are us. Everybody that's in power knows all about this. Why do you think Trump tells on himself with the UFOs when he got mad at Obama for saying there are UFOs? And then when he said climate change is a hoax because he knows about all the spraying in the sky. These people are all aware of what's going on. I think that's partially why that administration is so fucking baffled. But I've got a few more. Now, this one's not from here. This happened a while ago. It's a Russian scientist, actually.
This is Gennady Krokolev, a Russian scientist and clinical psychiatrist who said he could prove that thoughts and hallucinations could be captured on film. He died suspiciously in 1998, and most of his work disappeared or was made classified after his death. But why? What did he do? Well, essentially, Gennady took photos of his patients' eyes as they were having hallucinations, and when developed, the photos depicted their visions. He attached a Zenit camera and photographic bellows to an ordinary diving mask and replaced the glass with sheet film, then took photos once the patient reported seeing something. Here are the only examples I could find: antlers, a face, and a snake. With 117 patients confirming that the photos taken were in fact what they were seeing, Gennady's quote, "thought is material," seemed rather accurate, especially considering this was repeated relatively recently by more Russian scientists. But rather than working with psychiatric patients, they hired a remote viewer. They used the exact same photographic setup. Then the scientist stood behind a wall and held up numbers and shapes. And as the remote viewer tuned into them, someone photographed her eyes, and here are two examples. So how does it work? Well, it's suggested that the brain sends information to the retina of the eyes, which translates it into picture form and projects it out like a hologram, which is what we're seeing here. Maybe thoughts really do become things. What do you...
Now, did you notice in that last clip that we saw, they spoke of remote viewing, right? And that scientist who's Russian who went missing. Well, that was all during the Cold War.
Hired people we call psychics. This went on for over 20 years. An individual who claimed that he worked for the CIA doing remote viewing. He said, I crossed over to the other side many times, and language was never a barrier, and communicated with people and exchanged information, although the other person and he spoke different languages and didn't know each other's language. All those CIA files are now at Rice University.
And they're conclusive that remote viewing can be done?
They got hits. They wouldn't have kept doing it for over 20 years if they didn't get correct information.
And this is all public.
This program was far larger than most people realize or can conceive of being. The CIA...
And that's the thing. The CIA has shaped our reality, the entire planet's reality, since they came into inception, because the CIA decides what we see. And as we know, the CIA is a compilation of the Rothschilds, which is the banks, along with the Vatican, the CIA, and then some other old family lines, along with Israel, which is created by the Rothschilds, which is all involved in this as well. But understand, they can do a lot of things that they absolutely tell us that they cannot do. And more it's starting to come out. And I think the people that they're killing are the people that they are threatened of or feel are a liability for some reason, which means they're lying about a whole lot because they just keep killing people. This is an interview that was done with David Wilcock. One of his friends is doing it as a tribute to him. But in this, he does discuss some of the things that he has come to find out due to sources that have spoken to him and told him that, guess what? We've gone to Mars. Guess what? We can time travel. Guess what? We can go through portals. Guess what? There are all sorts of things that we can do. There are creatures, there are extraterrestrials. He's aware of this information, along with all of the other things that he discusses, and he's been very open about it for years, but it's interesting that now they kill him.
Skype, and I was using a pseudonym, and so was he. And this turned into a friendship that produced, I would say, probably 85 hours of conversation. The tube was actually visible with glass or some material like glass, and you would be zipping at a very high speed past Martian terrain. And he said it looked a lot like Sedona or the Grand Canyon. A lot of the rocks were red. He said it was gorgeous. It was incredibly beautiful. So he would take this bullet train ride, and he would end up going to this large base that was on Mars. Now, apparently, NASA is going to scrub images of this base out of their photographs that they take of Mars. Apparently, this area could be above the ground, and also some of it is definitely underground. Bizarre, because what he said was that he was working at this base that had 200,000 personnel. Well, what do you mean by personnel? Because he kind of had a very leading way of saying it. He said only 10,000 of the personnel were born on Earth. Now, I'm hearing this stuff, again, 2007, fully 7 or 8 years before Corey Goode showed up.
Didn't just learn this information. So what is coming that they're murdering all of these people? Because they've let them wander for years. And this guy's been openly public. But let's hear a little more of what he has to say.
And talked about having worked on Mars. Now, there's so much stuff that he told me, and a lot of it I still haven't really used because it's so complicated, was working on repairing certain types of advanced equipment that were being used on this base, and it was a fairly common type of equipment, I guess. One of the things that was really controversial was that at one point he told Kerry that he was working for a program called Solar Warden, which ends up being the same program that Corey Goode described later on. But then he was so paranoid about that information getting out that he denied saying it. And Kerry Cassidy was very upset about that because he clearly had.
I don't know if you guys know, but there was a guy who actually, a British guy, who hacked into NASA because he was obsessed with wanting to know about UFOs, and he found all sorts of proof that there was UFOs.
Types of advanced equipment that were being used on this base, and it was a fairly common type of equipment, I guess. One of the things that was really controversial was that at one point he told Kerry that he was working for a program called Solar Warden, which ends up being the same program that Corey Goode described later on. But then he was so paranoid about that information getting out that he denied saying it. And Kerry Cassidy was very upset about that because he clearly had. At the time, nobody else had mentioned Solar Warden before, so this was just another detail. Apparently, the UFO hacker Gary McKinnon had mentioned it because he had seen it in some of the documents he saw in NASA when he hacked the NASA computers. But other than that, I didn't know anything about Solar Warden at all. So Henry Deacon described going in and having these meetings with these various types of humanoids that were working on the base. One of the things he said was that some of these humanoids required different gravitational pulls than we would. And so they had devised a way on these bases to have the floor generate its own gravitational field corresponding to the needs of the being. So certain areas of the base were delegated for certain beings. Now, years later, we had the former Canadian Defense Minister, Paul Hellyer, come forward and basically say exactly the same thing. That there were certain cases where these whitish-looking people were being brought out into public places as part of this acclimation program. So Henry Deacon had also told me that there had been many other civilizations on Earth before the ones that we were familiar with, that there were plenty of ruins on Earth, that there were ruined extraterrestrial craft and cities underneath the surface. There was lots of stuff underground. And, of course, he's talking about working on Mars and that we had spaceships that could travel through our solar system. He hadn't really traveled outside the solar system per se. So then the story got even more interesting when I was having a dinner with people from Project Camelot at one of the Project Camelot conferences. And while I was there, I met a man who we're calling Jacob. And Jacob had worked for this same program that Henry Deacon had worked for. Quickly, everything I've been telling you up until now is going to get even more outrageous, but you have to bear with me. Jacob said that the main family that was running the secret space program on Earth was the Rothschild family. and he was directly working for them. He didn't like what they were doing. He didn't like their plans about mass genocide.
The Rothschilds. They have a finger in every single pie. I don't just mention their names because seriously, I didn't know who these people were until I started to look up history, and they've been around for centuries. My God, these people, my God, they're in everything. And I mean, they're trillionaires for God's sake. He who holds the money holds all the power, but they finance things like this. Let's let him continue.
And so he broke the rules quite a bit and told me a lot of things that they did not want him to say. After I met him at this dinner and I didn't really believe what he had to say, I kind of laughed at him when he was telling me some things. I gave him a chance again to come to my house, and he brought his laptop with him. So right off the bat, some really strange stuff starts to happen. First of all, he talked about a separate internet that they have. And this internet has small bursts of signal that piggyback on the signal of the rest of the internet. So like, let's say, if you just want to look at it on a line, like most of the internet signal is here, and then there's these little bitty packets in between that are shorter, but they're a lot denser. And none of our conventional routers or equipment would ever detect what those packets of information carry on them. But there is a whole separate system, a separate internet that runs on the backbone of the internet that you can log into, that has all this weird classified stuff in it. And it's basically a database. It's a repository of all this highly classified information. So we're literally talking about a guy who worked for the Rothschilds. He described at one point having a meal where they had this stack of plates, and the widest plate's on the bottom, and it gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and you just eat your way down through the plates. And he said that it was the best food you've ever tasted in your whole life. He also described that when these people are actually in their secret meetings, there are certain occult clothing and jewelry that they wear that you would never normally see. And so he thought of them as gays, and because of his regional dialect, he called them puffs. And so
I love that he called them puffs. But how many times have we heard this? Eyes Wide Shut, the cloaks, all of the Epstein's Island, all of the rituals, correlated all together because that's what Epstein's emails did. That's why he was obsessed with science. He was involved in all of this, or at least wanting to know more about it. But these people are obsessed with this because they know it exists. And now is just their time to spring it on us.
They would have all these rings on their fingers, and the rings might have a giant ruby or a giant sapphire, a giant emerald, or just be all gold. And so they would sit at the table like this, and they would be negotiating massive deals. We're talking in sometimes billions of dollars. And an entire transaction that could be worth $5 billion could literally be done by this guy moving his pinky finger with the ring on it.
For those of you who made it this far, congratulations. It's going to get a whole lot darker.
What are you doing, dude? You're going to lose.
Do you really want to see why this actually happened to David Wilcock? I'm about to show you his video in tears. Remember in my first video, I told you guys he was on the verge of discovering something big. Not just that, he knew things that were big. I'll explain it as we go.
It's to God. This is true, folks. You need to stop this shit. Some things I don't mind talking about. I don't like talking about this. What the hell are you doing, dude? You're going to lose. You're not going to win. It's inevitable. We already know because the future timeline is fixed. This particular timeline that we're on leads to your defeat. Around that, you are not being in integrity, but you don't care. But if you don't do this, we are screwed, man. You think this is all natural? You think nobody's going?
Now, listen to how that man is speaking, and let's talk again about how he died. So they say that there was a 911 call that was made by him, and that the 911 operator noticed a mental health condition, that the authorities went out there, discovered him with a weapon in a mental health condition, and then he immediately killed himself. what this is more and more looking like is that these people were finding out that there were things that were going to happen, that perhaps their silence was based on the fact that they knew that there was going to be a good result. And perhaps when all of them found out there wasn't, that's why they needed to go.
Coordinating any of this stuff? You think I want to talk about this? You think I want to be up here on the camera talking about this?
So what exactly is he talking about? I'll tell you. He has ins with a bunch of intelligent assets and companies, and he knows, based on Project Looking Glass, that the future had 2 routes and we avoided 1 route in 2012. It's very real. It's like the chronovisor in the Vatican that can show things that happened in the past. Yes, that's real too. It gets even crazier. Just hold on. He's wrong about one part and it hurts my heart. And that is that we will win in the end, not physically, not in the flesh, but spiritually, that Jesus already won. But not believing in Jesus, what he sees is the destruction of humanity, therefore he thinks it's the end. He knows the contract the government has with these benevolent beings of spiritual wickedness in high places.
And from earlier, what has he said? That he has known all of these things, that he's met with all of these people. And quite frankly, I don't think this man is lying one bit. And I think he was so tormented by it once he realized the reality. That is why they're all just dying or disappearing.
That and what I just told you is why. Did you know that David Wilcock is what the intelligence assets called a person of interest? What if I told you they were putting him under hypnosis the entire time he was a child? It's so easy for us to say, this person's evil, they're controlled, this and that. Not understanding they're in a very delicate, very adverse situation where they have these extremely benevolent societies that are controlling their actions, even as children.
Why was I waking up under hypnosis? Why was I walking out the door of my house in the middle of the night, hundreds of times as a child, and I couldn't remember where I was going?
Remember 7 on strange things? These people and these scientists and the ones that are locked in, they're chosen for a reason. It's never random.
And at the end of the thing, they just make me walk back to where I was, and then the memory is lost.
And why are all the scientists talking? Afraid.
Strange experimentation. There are beings from portals coming in and out.
Beings coming in and out of portals.
Yes, they have apparently in the bottom of the stern this portal, this door where they are dealing with all the subatomic dimensions.
She's not the only one talking about this.
And you know, at CERN, they are trying to find the God particle, and they have been saying for quite some time that there are a lot of things going on there that we don't know about.
If you've seen the latest video, you know Dan Burish has been saying the same thing.
They are from the future, 45,000 years ahead of
45,000 years ahead on a
45,000 years. If you actually watch the interview with Amy Eskeridge, there is actually a part of it where she talks about the future beings that come from 45,000 years and 47,000 years in the future, and that all of this has been written prior.
A separate timeline than what we are presently on.
People from the future coming through open portals. I can't even wrap my mind around it. And now, to hear a CERN insider saying it out loud. But here's what's more disturbing.
When you look at what is going on in the CERN, there is a fight from some of the military agencies. Intel, they say that there is a fight on time. They're trying to change time.
Trying to change time or changing timelines.
Remember, people that are being killed or suddenly missing. And remember when David mentioned the Rothschilds, they who have the money rule the world.
Understand that the deep state starts with the Rothschilds and the Vatican, all of these guys, and then moves down through the banking world and the Freemasons and the Knights of Malta and then the 2 political parties and then the secret intelligence agencies. There is absolutely no question but that the FBI and the Department of Justice are riddled with traitors, as is the Department of State and the Department of Defense. We have never taken counterintelligence seriously.
Well, because we're not really a country, as we're finding out. We're ruled by invisible hands that we don't see. And so all of the decisions that are made and all of the atrocities that have occurred have been orchestrated in order for us to believe one thing while these people achieve something far different.
In this country, there isn't a governor that has clean hands in the United States of America. It wasn't until Pizzagate that the larger public started to realize, hey, wait a minute. This is much, much bigger than we realized, to include underground tunnels, restaurants where you can order children on the menu. This is beyond most people's comprehension. There are 8 million children that are being both kidnapped and killed. This is the greatest genocide.
It all goes back to the Epstein files. That's how we all started to find out about this. Everything that keeps coming out correlates back to those emails, which means that none of that was a lie and that this is how those people fucking live.
And it's also one that's been going on for hundreds of years. This is not new. You have to understand that the deep state starts with the Rothschilds.
I hope you found that as some food for thought. If you made it all the way to the end, tell me what you think.